Hello and welcome to the Odds Checker betting show. I'm your host, George Ellick, and today we are talking golf. We're talking major tournament golf. It is the 2021 PGA Championship preview, and I'm joined by two of the very best golf tipsters in the game, in my opinion, and I think most others as well. We've got Odds Checker's very own Niall Lyons as ever, and Sporting Life's Ben Coley too. And guys, what I love about golf Twitter and golf tipsters, in other games you have tipsters seemingly getting quite, facing off against each other. There's a beautiful sense of community within the golf tipster group, and you guys have both been banging in the winners and congratulating each other about that too. So it's been an all right couple of months.
Yeah, it's been good, hasn't it? I mean, I don't know. I can't speak for other sports, but it's partly why I always prefer, golf betting to DFS. Is that you don't, and by that I don't mean the furniture store, Daily Fantasy Sports. You know what I'm talking about. But you don't need someone else to lose for you to win. If we all back Jordan Spieth this week and he wins, then we all win, right? So there's no reason. Someone once asked me why I was pleased that Dave Tindall tipped a winner. It's like 5 or 6 years ago. It's like, well, he's my friend above all else. So, I don't know. It's obviously difficult when you're on a really bad run and someone else is banging in winners. I'm not going to lie about that. I think one of the themes of this year seems to be, I don't know, like everyone I read's having a good time. So long may it continue. Long may it continue.
It suggests that the smart work is getting rewards. So that's always a good thing. And Ben, you're obviously better friends. You're a better friend than a lot of my friends, who, especially the ones who don't gamble, seem to always be quite annoyed whenever I win a bet, which is I never really appreciate too much. But Niall, you've been having a good time of it as well.
Yeah, all's good, which is it's a great change from last year. Anyway, and as Ben says, I think these things come in cycles almost, and no matter how well you're going, your bad run is only around the corner. You're just hoping it's not that soon around the corner anyway. Like a couple of great winners this year. Really happy to land Spieth. Some winners are better than others, and landing Spieth's comeback win and Higo in the Canary Islands too is particularly sweet. So hopefully we'll get another one this week, and as Ben says, hopefully it's Spieth.
Well, you sent me a picture of yourself in a bar last night with a couple of cocktails now, and hopefully it'll be the same again come next Monday.
Well, it was the first time in a bar in about 14 months since actually you were across here playing golf.
Yeah.
First time back in a bar having a drink, so I thought it would.
Unbelievable. After you and I came off the course at County Down 14 months ago, who thought that would be our last Tia Maria in a bar, let's say?
Well, I was in a soft play, gentlemen, so, thank you very much. Honestly, I've made this joke already on Twitter, but whoever decided to open soft plays on Monday of a major week is a cruel, cruel person. I'm going again tomorrow, apparently, so there we are.
Get it all in before Thursday. That should work out okay. Now we'll get into the golf now, and before we do, just going to point the listeners and the viewers in the direction of the Odds Checker app. Do download the app for the very best prices, which we'll be talking in the terms of here today, and also the very best place terms. A range of place terms this weekend. Sky Bet sticking their neck out, going 5th, 11 places, whereas you've got other firms such as Sport Nation who are a quarter to 5. So important, to look at both the best price options and also the place terms too, and the very best tipsters as well. Not all of them, of course. You can find Ben's tips over on Sporting Life, but Niall's tips on Odds Checker, and plenty other great tipsters there as well, such as the great man himself, Andy Holding, for every day's racing too. So do download the Odds Checker app. But let's talk about the golf, and it's going to be at Kiawah Island this weekend, Niall. And for those who, I think a fair few people who watch this and listen to this will have a severe interest in major championship golf, both in terms of their viewing and in terms of their betting, and maybe don't follow it the regular season too closely. And with the Masters, we talk about Augusta every year, and even with the Open Championship, people are probably more au fait with the courses. Kiawah Island, what kind of a challenge will this pose, and what kind of a player are you looking for to tackle it?
Well, it's the longest yardage major championship course in history, which seems to be the trend these days. It seems to be a new record, broken every year with these types of courses. Albeit Kiawah Island is a fantastic track, and maybe not like some of the tracks in recent years that have, really suited the Bombers. Kiawah Island is a bit different. It's going to play anything up towards 7,900 yards, which is really a silly yardage. It might not play as long, and we know the PGA like to have 2 or 3 tee boxes on each hole, so they can tinker with the yardage on any given day, depending on how difficult maybe they want to set it up. So it's a long course. We last seen it back in 2012 for the PGA. It held the Ryder Cup in 1981, but we last remember it for the 2012 PGA, where Rory McIlroy won, and he won it quite easily in the end.
On the snap.
It was rain soaked back then. It was soft. It suited McIlroy. I think we'll see slightly different conditions this year. The move, obviously that was played in August back in 2012. It's moving to May now. I think we'll see it's play slightly tougher just because of the winds. I think the wind will be a bit more of a factor than it was back in 2012. It's on the coast. It's slightly linksy, and certainly the 2012 leaderboard would suggest that there's a links feel to it. McIlroy obviously won it. You've got Poulter and Rose who were in the top 10. So yeah, I'm looking towards those guys who have a good record on links. So it's obviously my main area of attention really is the profiles of PGA champions. Obviously, we've got a lot of first-time major winners in the last couple of decades, but the PGA has welcomed many first-time winners down the years, and there's a fair chance it'll be another one this week. Paspalum Grass is another big talking point this week, whether you put that much importance on it or not. They don't play many events on Paspalum Grass in Mexico, Puerto Rico, on the PGA Tour, and the Saudi Open, which has been held the last couple of years, and in Qatar as well in the European Open. So there's not a lot of stats to go on with regarding that, but nevertheless, it could be a positive for your golfer. So whether the big thing is the yardage, whether it'll play, at the end of the week, we'll probably be saying, yeah, it suited the Bombers, because that's really what we usually end up saying, especially on these long golf courses. So I'd be surprised if probably one of the longest in the game aren't featuring on Sunday evening.
Yeah, I mean, I did read that at the tips, it's the longest play. I think we've got 6 tees per hole, haven't they, to choose from? So kind of some thinking that they could be creative with where they put the tees day by day. And it's interesting you mentioned the profile of recent PGA winners. I mean, growing up following golf, I always used to think this was a major that would throw up probably the surprise winner. But you look at previous champions, Morikawa last season, back-to-back Koepka before that, Justin Thomas getting off the mark in 2017, then back to 2015, Jason Day at the top of his game, Rory as well in 2014, Jimmy Walker, the only one in that list who kind of bucks the trend, I guess, of being world-class golfers on the ascendancy, winning major tournaments pretty early in their major tournament career. Ben, what kind of, we've heard what Niall's looking for here. Are you focusing more on the test that Kiawah provides, or are you looking for somebody who fits that PGA champion profile?
Yeah, more the former. I think the course is the best place to start. It sounds obvious. I do think, it's a links style test. It is exposed. It will. I think even a 10-mile-per-hour wind there is enough to keep them honest. If you go back to 2012 on the Friday, I think it blew 25 miles an hour and one player broke 70. That was Vijay Singh, a spectacular round of golf. And if we do get that level of carnage, I kind of think, length is all well and good, but you've got to keep it on the planet, obviously. But the other thing is that it's not necessarily a course where everything sets up obviously and you A to B, right? You stand on that tee on most of these par fours and you have a choice of how much you want to take on. So the Bombers can do that, but they've got to execute it. And there will be those, just because you can hit it 330, there will be those who decide to hit a 3-wood, who decide to maybe play a little bit more conservative at times. So I don't think it'll be, say, a repeat of Bethpage 2 years ago, which was Koepka, DJ, it just bombs away, really. Yeah. I don't think we'll get that. I hope not, because if we do, I probably haven't got the winner because I've only got one really big hitter in my team. And if we do get just a big hitter packed leaderboard, I hope that they realise that they're not really going about things the right way. That's a wider point, but I think the best thing they could do to Kiawah Island is make sure those greens are firm and push up a few tees, and then that's really open to anybody winning. And I want to feel like Kevin Kisner can win this. I want to feel like Zach Johnson could win this, right? I don't want to feel like, okay, it'll be Bryson or it'll be DJ, or it'll be, if there is a shock, it's going to be Cameron Champ. I think the more golfers, and a feature of a lot of PGA Championships maybe 10 years ago was that really you felt that anyone could win. And you did get a nice mix of champions. And we had that renewal that Jason Duffner won, which was probably the other way, where if you didn't hit it straight, you really had a little chance. In terms of the profile of winners, I think a lot of it is about the moment. We probably had more surprising major winners in that sort of post 2008 US Open, pre-emergence of Jordan Spieth, Justin Thomas, Dustin Johnson as a global force, if you like. There was that gap where Rory took advantage and won 4, but where also you did get some guys who you wouldn't necessarily expect to go and win another major. Right now, it feels like we're back to the very elite dominating, and I don't think anybody would be that surprised. It's very rare for someone outside the top 50 in the world to win a major championship regardless. So the winner will be, I expect, in some ways obvious. But for me, I'd rather focus on guys who've played well on exposed courses, certainly in the Open Championship where the grass is slower, than worrying too much about whether you can carry it 350.
Well, if Kevin Kisner's listening, a word of optimism for him as well. I mean, going back to the 1997 and 2003 World Cups that were held at Kiawah Island, Padraig Harrington and Paul McGinley won the 97 World Cup, and Trevor Immelman and Rory Sabatini won the 2003 World Cup. Now, I have absolutely no idea how the course was set up those years compared to what it'll be like this weekend, but a couple of not the biggest hitters there coming up trumps at Kiawah, so a word of optimism may be there. We'll get into the golfers now, and I should say that for this podcast and video, great to have Ben and Niall here, but this is in no way a substitute for their brilliant columns, which anybody listening to this and enjoying what they're saying should go and read, because there's so much detail in there, way beyond just who they are backing. And Niall even gets a nice slide dig at Elon Musk in, so must reading for anybody there. And we'll start at the top of the market. What we're going to do is we're going to go through the kind of big name players, I guess, at the top end of the market who deserve a bit of chat that you guys haven't tipped up. Then we'll go through your tips very quickly, and then look at a couple of sub-markets and players that you think are too short a price. I think Victor Hovland's name might come up towards the end of this podcast. But we'll start with Rory McIlroy, who is the 11-1 favourite. Niall, I'll give you first run on your compatriot here. 11-1 best price. Best place terms you're getting for that 11-1 is with William Hill, who are 9. As you mentioned, this is a return to a place where he enjoyed one of the finest moments of his career. And he comes here off the back of finally getting a first win under his belt for a long time. Do you think it is right that he is installed at the top of the market?
Yeah, of course. He's obviously coming back to a course he's won before, and just a few weeks ago at Wells Fargo, he got his 3rd victory at Quail Hollow. So he likes going back to courses that he's played well on before, and it's mainly the story off the golf course, which is a huge positive for McIlroy at the minute. He was obviously, in the last number of months, he's been in a difficult position, but as Ben has rightly pointed out plenty of times, he never fell that far down the world rankings, or that was considered a proper crisis, compared to success in the past, possibly, but it was never that big of a crisis. And he showed his class at Quail Hollow, how he can just turn up and win an event. I think obviously the work with Pete Can will help the change. I think he needed a change. But more importantly, probably the work with Bob Rotella would be the most important aspect of the whole thing. McIlroy, obviously, down the years, has struggled mentally on the golf course. We've seen it at times. We obviously seen a meltdown in the Masters, but there's been other occasions where, he's maybe just not quite scored as well as what he should have, simply because of the way he's been thinking. And he was back to probably nowhere near his best when he won at Quail Hollow a couple of weeks ago, and he has another level to reach. And at Kiawah Island, he has, if he putts well, he's going to be a serious force, because his long game will be in good nick. The thing is, I think, obviously I mentioned, longer hitters seem to have an advantage almost on every golf course these days, and it might not play out this week, But I would imagine there'll be a few bombers there at the top of the leaderboard come the weekend. But the important thing will be with the winds coming off the coast. I think there's going to be plenty of greens missed. And, McIlroy topped the scrambling stats back in 2012 when winning here. And that's probably the most important aspect of his win back then. And I wouldn't be surprised if it plays out again where we see the best short games win this week, which could be a bomber, it could be any type of golfer, to be fair. But if McIlroy turns up and he puts well, he must have every chance of winning the event. I think there's probably the win at Quail Hollow was impressive. He hadn't won in a while, and it was great to see it. But the only reason why I strayed maybe towards Spieth, as we'll get on to, is that there's a couple of golfers just playing slightly better than him, I would suggest, even though he deserves favouritism simply because what he done here back in 2012. So he deserves the jolly tag, and there's certainly not many negatives surrounding him.
Ben, you put McIlroy up at a much bigger price for the Masters. Was he near the shortlist here?
I was hoping we wouldn't discuss that. Look, when I put him up 5 times before up to and including the Masters, had a week off, he won at 20-1, right? So that's the story of how McIlroy's gone. I'm not saying I don't think I'd have put him up at Quail Hollow. Obviously, you try and eliminate that because it's gone, and you have to assess everything as it is. But if you're looking for an excuse to not go in again for the 10-1, 11-1 favourite, then obviously I probably had a better one than most. The other thing I would say is that for me personally, I would have wanted to see him win at Quail Hollow because he was in top form from tee to green, and he wasn't. He produced some of his best putting numbers there for a long, long time, since Bay Hill 2018, actually. Now, following Bay Hill in 2018, he was in the final group of the Masters. So Rory can take that as a springboard, and the confidence oozes through that long game, and all of a sudden the pieces are in place, right? I definitely wouldn't deny that possibility, but I think his price would have changed. Winning at Quail Hollow makes him an 11-1 shot. Winning at Quail Hollow with a good tee to green game, for me, would have been a better foundation. And for that reason and that reason alone, I would leave him out. But as Niall has said, there's only ever going to be one favourite here. Once the final putt dropped on the 72nd hole of that tournament.
A couple of others who are at the top end who you guys haven't put up, who kind of fit the bill, I guess. 2 big hitters, and certainly in Thomas's case, somebody whose chipping can be extraordinarily good. Justin Thomas and Bryson DeChambeau, both 16-1 here, Ben. I guess neither come into this in sterling form, but as course fits, I guess it's hard to kind of point to any negatives in terms of the way that they could approach this course.
Yeah, not hugely. Obviously, Thomas won at Sawgrass. What was it, 6 weeks ago? Pete Dye designed some similarities. It's a different looking course, but Pete Dye does like to ask these certain questions that make players feel uncomfortable. For example, the 18th hole at Sawgrass, right? You bail out down the right, you've got a really difficult approach shot. You go left, you're in water, and JT almost threw that event away by going in the water, but he was brave enough to take on the shot. He stood on the 18th tee with the lead and hit a hard draw towards the water. That's the sort of question you have to answer if you want to win at a Pete Dye course, and I think that will serve him well. He was brilliant tee to green. I think it was at the Valspar. So it's been really the putter that's held him back. I just don't necessarily have this as a perfect fit. I think when you start looking for players with form on those more exposed courses, on slower greens in Britain, in Ireland in particular, he played pretty well at Portrush, but generally that's the one he's yet to really work out, and it will be a slight negative. He's usually the player I like to side with in majors because he tends to be that bit bigger, but I think Augusta's a better fit, and he was disappointing there. He got into a great position and he made a complete mess of the 13th hole on Saturday, and that's 2 Masters back to back where he's got right to where he wanted to be and he's made a mess of it. I wouldn't dwell too much on that. I think he's a very strong player. His win rate is incredible, but it's 4 years since he won a major, and it might just be nagging away at him that he can go and win at the Players even with no problems at all. But in majors, he's got himself right in there into the top 5, and bang, something's gone wrong. So that's a bit of a flag. Bryson, I'll let Niall discuss at greater length. I think that he lacks a little subtlety. I don't think he's one-dimensional by any means, but he does lack a little subtlety. And if his iron play goes, that would be a worry. The other thing, I still have reservations around tight lies. That's probably what has been his undoing at Augusta, not just on the greens, but with his approach shots and the nature of how the course had played. Now, Augusta is a lot faster, obviously, but I don't think it's a coincidence he was so brilliant at winged foot, where his brute strength out of the rough was a massive factor. So for me, Bryson is more likely to win the US Open next month at Torrey Pines, where it'll be long, but it'll also be really gnarly, thick rough. So he's definitely on the radar for that. I wouldn't mind him, finishing mid-pack here and perhaps getting a bigger price if we can get 20s for the US Open. I don't think he'd be far away from my staking plan there.
Not anything to add on those two?
Yeah, I agree with Bryson. He's actually never really shown any form near coastal tracks, which is a bit of a worry. I think he will be suited by the length of the course, maybe, depending on how long it plays. But I think we're going to have a lot of shots coming in from 200 yards plus, which is probably his strength. The longer the golf course, whether you're in the fairway or rough, I think Bryson's one of his big strengths is, proximity, basically from that kind of length. But I think he'll need a top-class short game as well. I think there's going to be plenty of greens missed by many players here just because of the winds and the length of the approach shots. So, given the way he's played recently too, with 55th at the Barron Nelson, 46th at the Masters, it doesn't particularly appeal to me. Given how inconsistent he can be at times. I always talk about him being a great bet these days on many occasions, simply because he doesn't need to be anywhere near his best to contend. He's just got so much of an advantage off the tee, but I just don't think that plays out this week. In terms of Thomas, I think, of the top 5 or 6 in the market, he's the one I'd slightly be worried about come Sunday evening, that we might kick ourselves that we weren't really considering. I just think, obviously he won one of the biggest events of the year at Sawgrass, and then his last couple of appearances, 26th at Quail Hollow, he lost strokes on the greens. I mean, he was 13th at the Valspar, losing 6.5 strokes across the week on the greens, which is always a sign. And Ben often writes about it, as well as myself. It's a sign to back a golfer whenever they're performing well and having good finishes, but losing so many strokes in the greens, because an upturn in the greens can just happen in a flash. So for me, I think he's actually a danger, Justin Thomas. But again, he just didn't quite fit the profile of the course to make the staking plan.
Well, a few others who kind of fall into what Niall was saying about first-time winners follow these guys in the market. We're not going to talk about them because we'll get onto the picks, but you've got Xander Schauffele at 22-1, Victor Hovland 22-1, Daniel Berger 30-1, of course Tony Finau 40-1, Patrick Cantlay 45-1, and then somebody who certainly hasn't or isn't looking for their first major, but Brooks Koepka comes in here at 45-1. But we'll look at your picks now, and if there's any you want to discuss on those guys, we'll get there later. But Niall, we'll start with you, and I guess you've got 2 headline picks of sorts, 2 that you're staking the most on, but we'll start with the one towards the top of the market. 3 points on Jon Rahm at 15-1 it was for the 14-1 now best price for Rahm there. He comes into this second favourite, again looking for his first major. What appeals to you about his chances this weekend?
I understand he's a risky pick this week, simply because he's not entirely on top of his game, but I don't know how many. I didn't get reading everybody's preview last week, but I don't know how many previews I've read down the years the week before a major where we talk about maybe steering clear of the top of the market because these guys are fine-tuning their game for a major championship. And then when they have a bad finish, or a mediocre finish like Rahm did last week, 34th, you can't really use that as a negative whenever we've talked before about them fine-tuning the game. That being said, he did miss a cut on his previous start, so there's a possibility that he actually isn't anywhere near his best. But he finished 13th at Phoenix and 5th at Genesis this year, both losing strokes in the greens. 9th at Sawgrass, 7th at Torrey Pines. The last 2 Masters, he's finished 5th and 7th. Always a big pointer to me looking at the previous majors. I'd be very unhappy if I studied a major championship blindly, not looking at the last couple of major results, and then go go to those results, and the guys that I've got on my shortlist have not finished well in one or two previous majors. I think it's a huge pointer towards a winner of the next event. But more importantly, the reason why he made the staking list was just because of the profile of the course. He's obviously a fantastic record on links, 2 wins in Lahinch and Portstewart. Slow open greens, as Ben's talked about before, being a profile for this event. I mean, he's obviously third in the world, and I just think it's not going to be long before he wins one of these. And whether he's on top of his game or not, I'm happy to take around, the 14, 16 to 1 mark. And I think, McIlroy, before he won this in 2012, he finished 60th in the Open 2 weeks previous to that. And we know McIlroy has, weaknesses on open tracks, to be fair, but Poulter was right up there. He finished 29th in the Bridgestone the week before, and there was a couple of others, Bradley and all. He obviously won the Bridgestone the week before and finished in the top 3 at KY in 2012. So there's a couple of ways of looking at it, but I don't consider his last couple of results a huge negative, and I just think that the course should really suit his game, and I'm prepared to take the chance. He's the one that I would be slightly worried about a mistaken plan, one of the more riskier ones, despite the price of even backing a 200 to 1 shot. But he's just the pick of the bunch in terms of a course fit for me.
Yeah, Jon Rahm there, 14 to 1 for Niall, 3 points win. Next in the market is Jordan Spieth, and you've both put up Jordan Spieth this weekend. But we'll start with Ben because he's the headline selection, 5 points win at 16 to 1. Niall, don't panic. I'll come to you. You'll be able to talk about your beloved Jordan in a second. But Ben, what is it about? I mean, stupid question. I was about to say, what is it about Spieth's chances this week that you like? But I mean, anybody who's followed the golf for the last two or 3 months, it's impossible not to like his chances going into any event.
Yeah, I think the obvious stuff is all there. 7 top 15s in his last 8 starts. I think it would have been 8, but he at Sawgrass, his around the green stats were just abysmal. He must have done something great. I didn't really follow his progress closely that week. I was more fixed on JT, but they're totally anomalous. They don't mean anything, and they kept him down the leaderboard. Otherwise, he's been a mainstay of leaderboards right back since Phoenix. When we had this conversation at the Masters, obviously, Niall put him up in Texas where he won and stuck with him and was rewarded with 3rd place. I think I just needed to see a bit more. And I don't think we can underestimate the value of being in the mix at the Masters. I know he didn't play as he'd have liked to on the Sunday, but again, that's competitive rust, right? The reason he was able to win in Texas the way he did was the layers of the weeks before. It was probably unlikely. And I think we'd have said it ahead of the final round of the Phoenix Open. Do you think Jordan Spieth will win today? I think most of us would have said probably not. This is great. It's encouraging, but is the little stress points in his game and his swing are going to be really tested under this pressure of the final group, and he might just come unstuck. And I think it works in the same way on a different level in majors. He's now had that feeling again. He had a chance to win a major for the first time really since 2018. I think he was 3rd at Bethpage, wasn't he? But behind a runaway 2 at the top of the leaderboard. So I think that's really important that he's done that again. And as Niall alluded to, one of the best clues to any major winner, Colin Morikawa notwithstanding, is that they've been in the mix in a recent major. And I do think we should ring fence the 2020 PGA as a fairly unique tournament. Of course, they hadn't used in a while, but more to the point, no crowds and just a strange feeling around that event, to take nothing away from Morikawa. But I'll give you just the extra sort of flourish for me was that I was in the press conference, Jordan Spieth at the 2019 Open Championship at Portrush, and he spoke at some length about how the course reminded him of Birkdale, where he won the 2017 Open.
Wow.
What he said in that press conference was, this is a links course, but you still have to play it through the air. You can't run it up like you can at Carnoustie and St Andrews. It's a links course that you have to attack through the air, and that's unique to Portrush and Birkdale, in his opinion. Well, if you read about Kiawah Island, everyone will say it's a links-like course, but you've got to play it through the air. Everyone said it in 2012. You can't run the ball up to these greens because they're raised, as are many of the greens at Portrush. I think that makes it a really interesting fit for him. And then if you look at a comparable Pete Dye course, I would say Whistling Straits is probably the obvious one. By the shores of Lake Michigan, certainly vulnerable to the wind, that little bit longer than courses like Sawgrass or River Highlands, where he has won, by the way. So more in keeping with that. And he was second there to Jason Day in 2015, when very much at the top of his game. Obviously, he's in pursuit of the career Grand Slam, but not for a second do I worry about that. I think we're talking about probably mentally the best golfer of his generation. I think, 2016 at Augusta happened, but to then go and win the Open at 2017 when he'd hit a ball onto the driving range, he's got extraordinary poise and resolve, and he's got a really great relationship with Michael Greller, and I think a lot of this week will come down to that, and it's something. We probably haven't got time to talk about it, but at the time, 2012, Rory and JP Fitzgerald were a really great combination. And I think it definitely helps at a course where, you have got to be really making difficult decisions on the tee and committing to them. And golfers are going to need to hear that in their ear. They're going to need to hear this is the right shot. Now go and hit it. And he'll get that from Greller. He'll tell Greller it's the right shot, I guess. But yeah, loads of reasons to like him. But he's 16-1 versus 12s at Augusta. And I'm really, really happy with that price. I think he's, for me, the three most likely winners are Rory, Spieth, and DJ. And I took the two biggest prices out of those three.
So Jordan Spieth there for Ben, and Niall, you of course agree with him. You've put up Spieth a 3-point win. I think you nicked the last bit of 18-1 on Monday evening. Took Ben's price a bit there. Have you got anything to add to that glowing reference for Jordan Spieth's chances on the weekend?
No, nothing much to add. Only that I need to be on whenever he wins the Grand Slam. One of the main reasons why we have to bet, and we'll all be celebrating on Sunday evening.
I love the idea of somebody who's read your column, is that had the absolute nudges on Spieth and listens to this, says, I've just got to be on. That's all it is. But I think luckily for you, Ben's made the case pretty well. And on your column, you do too. And Ben, you alluded there to Dustin Johnson. So I'll come back to you quickly now. And I must say, when I flicked through the market on Sunday, looking at the prices, I was pretty surprised, given what little I know about Kira Island, pretty surprised to see DJ sitting at about the 20-1 mark. He's now 18-1, and you've put him up 3 points win for your second tip.
Yeah, I think he's the wrong price. It's really as simple as that. I can give you all the underlying reasons, but I think he's the wrong price. And I think one of the things, I guess, almost the reverse of the reasons I just have slight doubts about McIlroy. DJ hasn't played particularly well in his two starts since missing the cut at the Masters, which, by the way, defending champions always play poorly at the Masters, almost. But he's drove the ball brilliantly. Absolutely top class off the tee, first and third in his two starts, and his approach play was better last time. So I couldn't really understand the drift. I mean, he was 7-1 in places for this in December. He's played 9 times since, and he has won. And his form has definitely stepped down on last year, but last summer he drifted to 30-1 and he won the Travelers on a Pete Dye course. His Pete Dye form is exceptional. Also won at Crooked Stick. Should have won at Whistling Straits in 2010, where he was very hard done by. Obviously, if it plays long, then great. And for me, I thought there was too much worry about his form, but also the fact that he withdrew last week in Texas, citing a knee problem. I think it's nonsense. There was videos of him jumping off his yacht days before that, and he was at Kira Island on Saturday. I think he played 18 holes on Saturday. So if his knee was bothering him, why is he doing that? He doesn't need to spend 5 days preparing for a major. Certainly that's more than he usually would. So he's got Claude Harmon there to hopefully iron out any little weaknesses. His short game's going to have to improve. But if it does, 20-1 about the world number one winning the PGA Championship at a course which will suit him, will look like an astonishing price. And I'm more than happy to. He's the one of my selections. There is no chance on Monday I regret putting up DJ. Whatever, you missed the cut, I don't care. He's 20-1. So yeah, hopefully he delivers, but he's a value play.
Yeah, 20-1, long gone after Ben's column went out, unsurprisingly, but 18-1 still about with Bet365, Hills, plenty of others, BetVictor, Unibet, Betfred, and a couple more too. Now, Jordan Spieth wasn't the only selection that you two knocked your head together and came out with the same answer. Mark Leishman, another Niall, and he carries the most weight for you on his shoulders this weekend. 2.5 points each way. You put Leishman up at 60-1 with Paddy Power. That's with Sky Bet. That is 11 places. Now best price 66-1 with Bet Victor 55s for the big place terms as well. And I guess another guy who really fits that bill of a guy who's been knocking on the door to get that first major for a long time now, and a course that should fit as well.
Yeah, he has that perfect profile for a PGA winner. He's been a major winner in the waiting, really, hasn't he? This last 5 or 6 years, he's won the best tournaments basically in the world: Bay Hill, Torrey Pines. He won the Nedbank and the European Tour as well. Another course that you really have to think your way around. He ticks the links box, which we're both really looking to this week. Top 5 at Royal Liverpool, and obviously beaten in a playoff at St Andrews. He was 5th putting in Texas, which was a great sign. Lost strokes tee to green, still finished in top 20. That's another great sign. I like finding players who are losing strokes in a certain department heading to a tournament like this that have got room for improvement. I was lucky enough to have a chat with Duncan Carey, who he works quite closely with Leishman on strategy and data and analytics and those kind of things. And he was saying that the main reason for the improvement is his putting within from 6 to 10 feet. Said they're working on a few other aspects of his game, but mainly the upturn in his game in the last short while has been that area from 6 to 10 feet, which is a great sign heading to a major. You don't win major championships without holding those kind of putts and those power putts over the course of the week to keep momentum going. So obviously he contended in the Masters, which is another box ticked. He won in Zurich next time out alongside his countryman Cameron Smith, who have also backed this week. But everything points towards a big Leishman performance, and he's just a major champion in the waiting, and this could be the moment. And he's sitting at a great price, having just won a couple of weeks ago. Whether you put much weight on that being a team event or not, they played well together, and yeah, he's just sitting at a lovely price as well.
Yeah, Ben, you agree clearly. You put him up 1 point each way as well.
Yeah, I like him a lot. He's a Pete Dye winner at River Highlands as well. I think Niall mentioned some of those courses he's won on. Torrey Pines and Sun City in South Africa are massive courses as well. So while he isn't the longest, all he needs to do generally, Leishman, when he's at his best, is stay in the conversation from the tee. He does have a wild drive in him. If he can avoid that, after that, he gets to work, and when his iron play has been great. His short game stats are poor, but I have a theory that he's better off tight lies. He would say so, and I think that's significant. I loved how he chipped at TPC Louisiana, another Pete Dye course where he won that team event a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, loads in his favour, I think, and he said himself in a recent podcast he loves this course. He enjoyed it in 2012. I think he finished 27th. At the time, it was his 5th or 6th major start, and it was the first time he cracked the top 30. He's come a long way since, and now is one of those who nobody would be surprised if they won a major. He's not as flashy as he is some of the other players you might find at that sort of price. Joaquin Niemann and all his promise, and even a Paul Casey at the same sort of age, or older than Leishman, obviously, but he's rock solid, underestimated, easy to underestimate, and I think he'll go well.
Yeah, absolutely. Niall, a couple more for you, 1.5 each way selections. Tyrrell Hatton and Cameron Smith. Talk us through those.
Well, Tyrrell Hatton's 4 best tee to green performances in his career have come over the last 15 months. And I think major winners like Hatton and, are potential major winners, but guys like Molinari who won the Open a couple of years ago, he struck while the iron was hot, and I think it's going to be around this time. If Hatton's going to win a major, it's going to be within the next 12 to 18 months. I thought one of the most talented performances of the season was actually going out in the final group with McIlroy in Abu Dhabi. He was one back of McIlroy, and he ended up winning the event by 4 shots. It was just an unbelievable performance. Tommy Fleetwood was in the group behind. He was right in the mix as well. He beat the best in the game that day. It was just a huge performance, and then he in his defence at Bay Hill earlier on in the year, I think he finished 21st, but he lost over 4 strokes in the greens. We could have been talking about a back-to-back Bay Hill champion had he managed to hold a few putts that week. So He's another one who fits the bill. He's got 2 Alfred Dunhill Links wins, which is a huge feather in his cap heading to KO Island. And he was playing great stuff last year, but missed cuts in all the 3 majors. And I kind of steered clear of him last year, and I thought maybe he wasn't ready. But I think the signs are. I thought the performance in Abu Dhabi going out with McIlroy was really telling, and I think if he gets into position again, I think he could go on to win it. Cameron Smith, along the same lines as Leishman, I think he's maybe a major champion in waiting. Only that he hasn't had as long a career really as Leishman just yet. But lately, we were on him at triple figures when he finished second at the Masters to Dustin Johnson, and he's been all the rage ever since. And he's been playing great stuff. He's barely been out of the top 10 in his last 4 or 5 events. He obviously won in Zurich, but he's got such a great game for this. I think. I do think scrambling will become a big part of the conversation over the 4 days, and he's one of the best in the game at the minute at getting up and down, holding crucial power putts over the course of the week. He's got 2 Australian PGA wins, which is absolutely massive for an Australian. And those courses are often exposed to wind as well. We've seen wind in those events down the years plenty of times. So I think if he gets into contention, he can draw upon those 2 Australian wins as well. He obviously won on the Sony as well, which is by the sea. Everything points towards a big performance. He's maybe not a bigger price as you would have hoped. I did say in the preview that I was slightly uncomfortable with the price I was backing with, but nevertheless, I think that profile wise and the way he's playing, he had to be included.
Yeah. So current prices for those 2. Tyrrell Hatton is best price now 55 to 1. That's a Bet Victor, but you're looking at 50s or 45s if you want the juicy place terms. Cameron Smith 45 to 1 with Unibet, who are 7 places, 40 to 1. 365 who are 8s, and Skybet who are 11 places, 33 to 1. Smith 40 to 1. Hatton. Tyrrell Hatton not the only Englishman in with a chance. Ben, hopefully Tommy Fleetwood can justify your support as well.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the first time I've put up Tommy for a major. He actually had a chance to win this last year. I put him up at 40s for that. In the final round, it's one of those you're following on Shot Tracker, and what on earth happened there? I think he made a double or a triple bogey at the 6th hole when he was 2 shots back. Right alongside Morikawa. I think. In fact, I think Morikawa chipped in at the same hole to get things going. And it turned out his caddy, Ian Finnis, later told me that they lost the ball up a tree. Now, what can you do? He missed his target by a yard and the ball got stuck up a tree. So things didn't go for him there, but he's been a regular major contender. You throw in that with Shinnecock and with Erin Hills, both of which he had a chance to win. Also, of course, Portrush, where he was a distant second in the end to Shane Lowry, but certainly early in the final round, he was the one who was trying to hunt Shane down and win his first major. And I think he's similar to Leishman in that regard. It's probably a little bit longer than I'd like since he won. And I do think it's fair to say that he's not been driving the ball as well as he can this year. But he's been home, spent some time with the family, came back after the Masters for Quail Hollow, finished 14th. Really felt like he'd seen some good signs of progress there. And I was talking about the caddy thing. I don't want to overplay it, but I think there's a reason he's been so consistent in majors in particular. I think him and his caddy, Ian, who is a tremendous player in his own right, are diligent and prepare so well. And I think that's a lot of the battle. And I think they'll be absolutely licking their lips at this. A coastal course with those raised greens, the potential links to Portrush and Birkdale, where Tommy grew up, is form in Abu Dhabi, where it's always windy, but also at Le Golf National. I think if you look at those European players who are in the top 10 here in 2012, some surprise names like Peter Hansen and David Lynn, they've all got good form at Le Golf National, where again, you've got to control your ball in the wind, and where again, you're asked some difficult questions, probably more a test of execution, but it's fairly similar to a Pete Dye course. So lots of things with Tommy that I like, and for once we can have more than 50. He's probably about 50 now, but 50 to 1 and bigger with 11 places for a major championship. Tommy Fleetwood always deserves a second glance, and I've high hopes for him. I think he can win a major.
Another player who has won a major, won an Open Championship, tying into that links form line, I guess, is Shane Lowry.
Yeah, I probably followed him off a cliff a bit. I was on him when he won the Open at 70 to 1, and we all probably view those golfers a bit more favourably. I feel like I've got a decent handle on Shane. It's just not necessarily played out. I think generally, if you were to look at my record in putting him up, he plays well that week. Whether it's quite enough to go on and win the tournament is a different matter, I suppose. I like the improvement in his irons. I think if, like Niall, I do think short game's going to be huge. I think around the greens when there are options, it's just an absolute pleasure to watch Shane. He's different class. The shots he can play, there isn't one he can't play. Short of Phil Mickelson, I could even argue, to be honest, he's better at some of certainly the more on the ground shots around the green. So I think the course will set up really well for him, providing it's not too long. The length thing, he's won at Firestone, and that's an absolute brute of a course on the scorecard. So I think he's one of those players who, over his career, will probably not win as often as his position in the market or even the world rankings would suggest he might. But when he does win, it'd be a big one. Danny Willett, similar, that sort of player. Padraig Harrington, similar. And I think Shane's got it in him to be a multiple major champion. And I think he's in a really good place. So that's all a little bit tenuous and nothing really concrete in the stats. But I just think if this does prove a windy, scrambling test, then there aren't that many who I'd have further up the list in terms of ideal fits.
Shane Lowry there, 1 point each way for Ben. Best price at the moment. Lowry now is 80-1 with Unibet and BetVictor, as short as 50s elsewhere. But it's 60-1 with the 11 places. But as ever, been clipped in a bit since Ben's column went out. And Tommy Fleetwood, we've got at 66-1 best price as it stands, with a few shorter too. A couple of big price picks now for the two of you, Niall, and I know that you're very excited with your biggest price selection. He was my big pick, big fancy for this tournament last year, and gave me a quite an exciting couple of days before falling away pretty quickly. Hopefully he goes a few better for you on Sunday.
Yeah, I've always really kind of stayed clear of Thomas Pieters in regards to major championships, a little because I think he's been slightly overrated down the years. I think there's been a lot of talk about what he's going to achieve in the game. It hasn't really played out. Obviously got into the Ryder Cup team a number of years ago, and he played well there. But he definitely hasn't won as much as what you thought he would, and what he probably thought he would as well. His last major effort was in the US Open last year. It was his last major outing. He finished 23rd, but he was second after day one. He shot 66 in the first round at Winged Foot, and he's capable of things like that in major championships. He sprung up before, and maybe hasn't stayed the course over the weekend, but he's very capable like that. The big thing for me that I noticed was before last week, his appearance at the Byron Nelson, he played 4 events in a row in Saudi, Puerto Rico, Qatar, and Punta Cana, all 4 events on Paspalum grass, and I don't think that's an accident. It has to be deliberate in his schedule when he knows that he's going to miss the Masters, and his first major appearance of the year is going to be at KO Island. That he has set up a schedule like that to play those 4 Paspalum events. He was third in the Saudi Open the year before as well, which is on Paspalum grass as well. And as ever with Thomas Pieters, the putter is going to be the problem. But if he's putting those 4 performances on the Paspalum grass in the last couple of months, he hasn't been outside the top 15. They haven't been in the most strongest of fields, granted, but the putter is usually a problem with him. And if he's going well enough on those courses on that grass, then I think that he's just worth chancing. He missed a cut last week at the Byron Nelson, but I think if that schedule was deliberate in preparation for KO Island, he was always going to go to Byron Nelson anyway, because he's been inactive for a while, and some tournament golf would help. But he missed the cut, obviously, but he gained 3 shots to the green, even though in those 2 rounds last week that he missed a cut. His putter was absolutely horrendous, which obviously can happen with Thomas Pieters, but I thought he was definitely at 200-1, 250s. I think was top price at the start of the week. I think he was definitely worth chancing, and maybe this is his time, and he's honed his schedule for this. And KO Island could suit. Obviously the short game is an issue, but long game on his day, he's certainly one of the best Europeans.
Yeah, 1.25 points each way. Pieters there, 200-1, still around with a few firms: 365, MansionBet, Betfred, 10Bet, and BetVictor. And to sign off your final selection, it's been a good podcast and preview for Australians. We've had Cameron Smith, we've had Mark Leishman, and now Ben Matt Jones for you at a big price.
Yeah, he was about the minimum price I would have put him up at, to be honest. So there'd be some hesitancy with the market adjustment. But we are going to get 10 or 11 places, or 8 or 9 or whatever it is, and I like his profile for it. Now, he's a 41-year-old. He's won twice in a 10-year PGA Tour career, maybe even spanning close to 15 years now. So he doesn't look an obvious major champion, but I think the PGA has thrown enough of those up in the past. And so has the Open. And I think there's no coincidence there. The test is so different to what we get week in, week out. And Matt Jones is a 2-time Australian Open winner as well, beating very, very good opposition. I think he beat Oosthuizen and Spieth for those 2 titles. Excuse me. I think, he probably has got more of a pedigree than at first may appear. He's gaining strokes through the bag this year. He's playing the best golf of his career. He's hitting the ball longer than he ever has. He definitely falls into the sneaky long category. He's got a brilliant short game. All those things I thought were interesting. The 2 final things, one, he won the Honda Classic. He won it by 5 as well, but that's the event Rory won the same year he won this. Not only that, it's a great trial for major champions. You look down the Roll of Honour, almost every winner there has either won a major or nearly won a major. Even the likes of Michael Thompson, who's a nobody in this sort of sense, almost won the US Open. Padraig Harrington, Ernie Els, Wai Yang, Gary Woodland, Adam Scott, all these guys who've been in the mix in the Honda are so regularly either major winners or on leaderboards at majors. And the second thing is that if I draw that line again to Whistling Straits, the host venue for the 2015 and 2010 PGA Championships, well, Jones was the halfway leader in 2015. He gets forgotten because he had a bad third round and was out of the mix by the end of it. But that's just another hint that he could like this course. And if he does, you got a recent winner at 150 to 1. It's only 3 starts since he won. He was 26 at the Masters. We're only looking for a small improvement from that on a more suitable course. And he hits the places. Hard to imagine him winning, but I'm happy to have him on side, certainly to give us a run for our money at a big price. And I didn't really want to play him in the top Aussie market because I am keen on Leishman. Adam Scott generally plays well, and Cam Smith, as Niall has argued, is rock solid too.
Matt Jones there, 150 to 1, 365, Bet Victor and Unibet. You mentioned the top Australian markets. We may as well go now to see any of the sub markets, Ben, you'll be playing in. Have you looked at any of the top nationality or anything else that you can find a bit of value in?
Yeah, the one I really like is top continental European. So half of this I'm going to really agree with now and half disagree. I'm kind of against Jon Rahm. I just think his price is on the short side for where his game looks to be. I'm definitely against Victor Hovland, who's now 20 to 1, which I think, I just think it's far too short. And I like him a lot. He's never been in the mix for a major. He's never played Kiawah. It's not like we've got, I just think it's absurd that he's a 20 to 1 shot. Some firms make him the same price as DJ. Those two take out more than 50%, well more than 50% of the top continental European book. You then have Sergio at 9 to 1, who has not played well in the major since 2017. He's abysmal major golfer at the moment. He misses the cut in virtually all of them. So all of a sudden, you've got sort of it's about a 4 to 7 shot that one of those 3 wins it, and I'm not convinced by any of them. And you can have, it's maybe a bit filthy, but you can have a quarter of the odds 3 places. So I'm going to play Thomas Pieters and Victor Perez, because if one of them gets in that top 3, you basically double your money. And I think they're both realistic winners at 20 and 25 to 1. Niall's made the case for Thomas Pieters. I'm a huge fan. I think he's one of those that if it did click for him, could all of a sudden take off, And I don't think we should underestimate how difficult it can be as a talented Belgian to have to go and play in America if you want to be the best. And maybe he's lacked for motivation at times. He's a dad now. There's all, I think we forget the human sometimes. And for Thomas, I think probably there's been some mental issues. Technically, I think he's a phenomenal golfer who is a putting stroke away from being world class. And the other one's Victor Perez. He's kind of fallen off the radar. He's 175 to 1 outright, which I think will tempt some. He's about 35th in the world rankings for one thing. He's a winner of the Dunhill Links. He's had 2 top 10s in his last 3 starts, but the most recent was a miscut at Augusta, so it puts us off. But those 2 top 10s were 4th place in the match play, Austin Country Club, which is designed by Pete Dye, and top 10 at Sawgrass, also designed by Pete Dye. All those things point you towards him. 4th in Saudi, Paspalum Grass is a nice little thing to add to. And there's a wild card element as well. His caddy is JP Fitzgerald, who was, of course, on the bag for Rory here in 2012. So loads of little reasons to think Perez could play well. 25 to 1 top to a European is the market I play him in. Niall actually makes him, I think, joint favourite with Rosner in Top Frenchman. I think he deserves to be favourite. So I will see how they go.
Let me just look up the opening times of my local William Hill quickly. Yeah, that sounds very compelling indeed, Ben. Thomas Pieters and Victor Perez, 20-1 and 22-1 best price, with Hills, Paddy's, Betfair Sportsbook, Betfred as well. Make a good case for that one. Niall, anything for you in those sub-markets?
I had Victor Perez, top continental Europe, was written down here as well, even though I'm going against one of my own selections. I absolutely agree with Ben. I think he's one of the outsiders in the field that could be worth a few quid, with the place terms as well. I was actually kind of keen on him and Wiesberger, just as outsiders possibly going well in this event and in the top continental market. Victor Perez has a lot of positives, and I was considering to back him in the Masters, to be fair, last month. Obviously he missed the cut, but the results that Ben just said there, obviously Sawgrass, Saturday, the match play, won Dunhill Links, second at Wentworth as well. He's got such a pedigree now, and he is sitting at a huge price, and definitely one worth looking to in the extra markets. One I quite like was actually top Canadian. There's only a three-way market, but Mackenzie Hughes is 7-2 there. He won at Sea Island, the coastal track just down the road. He was second at the Honda as well last year. As Ben mentioned, that it's a great sign for going well in major championships. And he has a second and third in Punta Cana on Paspalum Grass as well. Contrast that with Corey Connors, who's around the 8 to 13th favourite in that market. He's 2 missed cuts at Punta Cana, 2 missed cuts at Puerto Rico as well. All those 4 events being on Paspalum Grass, and obviously Connors' big weakness is his putter anyway. So I thought he was worth taking on in the top Canadian market, and 7-2 Mackenzie Hughes looks a decent price.
I've got one more for you, George, if you
yes,
like
absolutely.
it. I don't like to interrupt. The other one I like was Mickelson to be the top former winner. 25-1, quarter first 3. You're taking on Rory, you're taking on Justin Thomas and Colin Morikawa, but Brooks Koepka clearly not fit. Jason Day really out of form. I think there's definite room here, and Phil's playing a lot better than his results. He said he just needs to focus more, and if anything can hold his attention, it's the USPGA. I think 25-1, you get past him in the market, and you get into people with very little chance. So I think they're realistically about 6 winners of that, and he's one of them. So 25-1, I think I'll add that in.
25-1, yeah, it seems a massive price when you look at Keegan Bradley sitting there at 8-1. 25-1, quarter of the odds, top 3. So 3, well, I should say 4 with both Perez and Pieters' selections there in the sub-markets. I think we've kind of touched on the players to swerve. I think Hovland seems to be the headline one. Anyone else you guys just want to point out that you couldn't have this weekend?
I think Brooks has got to be a bit of a red flag. He's clearly not fit, but it's not like you can take him on at 45-1. I think, and no one's going to be pressing lay on the exchanges. But in 3 balls and things like that, he's going to be a big name in his 3 ball, isn't he? Every chance he gets in with, say, Morikawa and JT, they might put the last 3 PGA champions together, and you might look for an edge there somewhere. I'm not sure where it would be, but definitely I'd look to take him on. I think the 2 who just look to have come into prices that are a little bit on the short side of probably Berger and Hovland. They both have solid credentials, but I don't think they're quite entitled to their prices. But it's not easy to necessarily oppose them. I'd just be not so interested in them.
I feel like with Hovland, if you look to the course and you drew up a short list without looking at prices, Hovland would be pretty near the top of the list. But personally, wouldn't be kicking myself if you watched him win at 20-1 on Sunday evening.
The thing for me is, and I don't want to harp on about it, even though I am. I put him up at 50. I put him up at 50s in December, right? It's my only good anti-post position, so I'm not crowing because the rest of the anti-post selections, I put up Matt Wolff for the US Open. He's not even going to play. So it's not that, but he's gone from 50 to now 20 and 18-1 without winning. And I don't think you have to win to demonstrate that you're improving or whatever. But I don't think we've learned much more about Victor Hovland since December. I think people are getting carried away with the Paspalum thing. Both of his wins are on Paspalum grass, but I think more to the point, both of his wins are in pretty average tournaments, and he's got to go and do it at this level yet. And he's plenty short enough. Comparing to Morikawa is he's a good way ahead of him at the moment, and he's almost twice the price on the exchanges. So he wouldn't be for me.
No, are there any for you just to put up as a fade?
I wasn't that keen on Dustin, but Ben puts up a great case for him particularly, the withdrawal from the event last week. Ben could have hit the nail on the head there. That he's seen the bad weather forecast, in Texas, and thought to swerve it, and probably a good decision to swerve it in the end. Could have been going to a Monday finish for all, So yeah, I wasn't that keen on Dustin, but at the same time, Ben has made a very good living in the last 12 months off backing the best players in the game, drifting out to 20-1 plus and 30-1. These kind of prices that he's backed DJ at winning events and this, that, and the other. So yeah, I totally don't blame him for putting up. He makes a great case for him, but he just really wasn't for me. And Sander Schauffele fits the bill for me. He's obviously got the Open Championship form that I'm looking to, and a great profile for a PGA winner as well, but slightly short in the market, especially given how he's closed events, in the last 6 to 12 months. Hasn't been totally convincing, and he just hasn't drifted the backable mark to include him. And I just think he's a bit. He's going to be all the rage in the next couple of years. He's going to be that Brandt Snedeker type golfer that everyone was backing for. All the mug punters were backing for years, probably before he wins a major. So, yeah, he's just sitting. You really want 40 or 50-1 about him to win a major at the minute. But.
Great stuff. Well, thank you very much to both Niall and to Ben. Fingers crossed one of you, or maybe even both of you, will be happy come Sunday evening. Anybody watching or listening to this, do follow them both on Twitter. Do check out all of the content they'll be producing over the course of the week. We are blessed to have guys producing such great golf betting stuff as these two do. So thank you very much for them for that and for joining us today. Do download the Odds Checker app, as I mentioned, for all the best prices, the best bookie offers, the best place terms, Niall's tips, not just for the major tournaments, but every weekend's golf as well. So hopefully a couple of winners in there, definitely some value. Do enjoy the golf, and most importantly, please do gamble responsibly.